Chapter 2. Blair stirred uneasily, his little, bony fingers wriggling under the harsh light. Little brown freckles on his knuckles slid back and forth as the tendons under the skin twitched. He pulled aside a bit of the tarpaulin and looked impatiently at the dark ice-bound thing inside. McGreedy's big body straightened somewhat. He'd ridden the rocking, jarring steam tractor 40 miles that day, pushing onto Big Magnet here. Even his calm will had been pressed by the anxiety to mix again with humans. It was lone and quiet out there in secondary camp, where a wolf wind howled down from the pole. Wolf wind howling in his sleep. Winds droning and the evil, unspeakable face of that monster leering up as he'd first seen it through clear, blue ice, with a bronze ice axe buried in its skull. The giant meteorologist spoke again.
The problem is this. Blair wants to examine the thing, thaw it out and make microslides of its tissues and so forth. Norris doesn't believe that is safe, and Blair does. Dr. Copper agrees pretty much with Blair. Norris is a physicist, of course, not a biologist, but he makes a point I think we should all hear. Blair has described the microscopic life forms biologists find living, even in this cold and inhospitable place. They freeze every winter and thaw every summer for 3 months and live. The point Norris makes is they thaw and live again. There must have been microscopic life associated with this creature. There is with every living thing we know. And Norris is afraid that we may release a plague, some germ disease unknown to Earth, if we thaw those microscopic things that have been frozen there for 20 million years. Blair admits that such micro-life might retain the power of living. Such unorganized things as individual cells can retain life for unknown periods, when solidly frozen. The beast itself is as dead as those frozen mammoths they find in Siberia. Organized, highly developed life forms can't stand that treatment, but micro-life could. Norris suggests that we may release some disease form that man, never having met it before, will be utterly defenseless against. Blair's answer is that there may be such still living germs, but that Norris has the case reversed. They are utterly none immune to man. Our life chemistry probably. The little biologist's head lifted in a quick, bird-like motion. The halo of gray hair around his bald head ruffled as though angry. One look. I know, McGreedy acknowledged. The thing is not earthly. It does not seem likely that it can have a life chemistry sufficiently like ours to make cross-infection remotely possible. I would say that there is no danger.
McGreedy looked toward Dr. Copper. The physician shook his head slowly. None whatever, he asserted confidently. Man cannot infect or be infected by germs that live in such comparatively close relatives as the snakes, and they are, I assure you, his clean-shaven face grimaced uneasily, much nearer to us than that. Vance Norris moved angrily. He was comparatively short in this gathering of big men, some 5'8", and his stocky, powerful build tended to make him seem shorter. His black hair was crisp and hard, like short, steel wires, and his eyes were the gray of fractured steel. If McGreedy was a man of bronze, Norris was all steel. His movements, his thoughts, his whole bearing had the quick, hard impulse of a steel spring. His nerves were steel. Hard, quick-acting, swift-corroding. He was decided on his point now, and he lashed out in its defense with a characteristic, quick, clipped flow of words. Different chemistry be damned. That thing may be dead, or, by God, it may not, but I don't like it. Damn it, Blair, let them see the monstrosity you are petting over there. Let them see the foul thing and decide for themselves whether they want that thing thawed out in this camp. Thawed out, by the way. That's got to be thawed out in one of the shacks tonight, if it is thawed out. Somebody, who's watchman tonight? Conant. Cosmic rays tonight. Well, you get to sit up with that 20-million-year-old mummy of his. Unwrap it, Blair. How the hell can they tell what they are buying if they can't see it? It may have a different chemistry. I don't care what else it has, but I know it has something I don't want. If you can judge by the look on its face, it isn't human, so maybe you can't. It was annoyed when it froze. Annoyed, in fact, is just about as close as close an approximation of the way it felt, as crazy, mad, insane hatred. Neither one touches the subject. How the hell can these birds tell what they're voting on? They haven't seen those three red eyes and that blue hair like crawling worms. Crawling. Damn, it's crawling there in the ice right now. Nothing Earth ever spawned had the unutterable sublimation of devastating wrath that thing let loose in its face when it looked around its frozen desolation 20 million years ago. Mad? It was mad clear enough. Searing, blistering mad. Hell, I've had bad dreams ever since I looked at those three red eyes. Nightmares. Dreaming the thing thawed out and came to life, that it wasn't dead or even wholly unconscious all those 20 million years, but just slowed, waiting. Waiting. You'll dream too while that damned thing that Earth wouldn't own it's dripping in the Cosmos house tonight. And Conant, Norris whipped toward the cosmic ray specialist. Won't you have fun sitting up all night in the quiet? Wind whining above and that thing dripping? He stopped for a moment and looked around. I know, that's not science, but this is. It's psychology. You'll have nightmares for a year to come, every night since I looked at that thing I've had him. That's why I hate it, sure I do, and I don't want it around. But put it back where it came from and let it freeze for another 20 million years. I had some swell nightmares that it wasn't made like we are, which is obvious, but a different kind of flesh that it can really control. That it can change its shape and look like a man, and wait to kill and eat. That's not a logical statement. I know it isn't. The thing isn't Earth logic anyway. Maybe it has an alien body chemistry. Maybe its bugs do have a different body chemistry. A germ might not stand that, but Blair and Copper, how about a virus? That's just an enzyme molecule, you've said. That wouldn't need anything but a protein molecule of any body to work on. And how are you so sure that of the million varieties of microscopic life it may have, none of them are dangerous? How about diseases like hydrophobia, rabies, that attack any warm-blooded creature, whatever its body chemistry may be, and parrot fever? Have you a body like a parrot, Blair? And plain rot, gangrene, necrosis if you want. That isn't choosy about body chemistry. Blair looked up from his puttering long enough to meet Norris's angry, gray eyes for an instant. So far the only thing you've said this thing gave off that was catching was dreams. I'll go so far as to admit that. An impish, slightly malignant grin crossed the little man's seamed face. I had some too, so it's dream infectious, no doubt an exceedingly dangerous malady. So far as your other things go, you have a badly mistaken idea about viruses. In the first place, nobody has shown that the enzyme molecule theory, and that alone, explains them. And in the second place, when you catch tobacco mosaic or wheat rust, let me know. A wheat plant is a lot nearer your body chemistry than this otherworld creature is. And your rabies is limited, strictly limited. You can't get it from, nor give it to, a wheat plant or a fish, which is a collateral descendant of a common ancestor of yours, which this, Norris, is not. Blair nodded pleasantly towards the tarpaulined bulk on the table. A table. Well, thaw the damned thing in a tub of formalin if you must. I've suggested that, and I've said there would be no sense in it. You can't compromise. Why did you and Commander Gary come down here to study magnetism? Why weren't you content to stay at home? There's magnetic force enough in New York. I could no more study the life this thing once had from a formalin pickled sample than you could get the information you wanted back in New York. And if this one is so treated, never in all time to come can there be a duplicate. The race it came from must have passed away in the 20 million years it lay frozen, so that even if it came from Mars then, we'd never find its like. And the ship is gone. There's only one way to do this, and that is the best possible way. It must be thawed slowly, carefully, and not in formalin. Commander Gary stood forward again, and Norris stepped back, muttering angrily. I think Blair is right, gentlemen. What do you say? Conant granted.
It sounds right to us, I think. Only perhaps he ought to send watch over it while it's thawing.
He grinned ruefully, brushing a stray lock of ripe cherry hair back from his forehead.
Swell idea, in fact, if he sits up with his jolly little corpse.
Gary smiled slightly. A general chuckle of agreement rippled over the group. I should think any ghost it may have had would have starved to death if it hung around here that long, Conant, Gary suggested. And you look capable of taking care of it. Iron Man Conant ought to be able to take out any opposing player still. Conant shook himself uneasily. I'm not worrying about ghosts. Let's see that thing. Eagerly, Blair was stripping back the ropes. A single throw of the tarpaulin revealed the thing. The ice had melted somewhat in the heat of the room, and it was clear and blue as thick, good glass. It shone wet and sleek under the harsh light of the unshielded globe above. The room stiffened abruptly. It was face up there on the plain, greasy planks of the table. The broken haft of the bronze ice axe was still buried in the queer skull. 3 mad, hate-filled eyes blazed up with a living fire, bright as fresh spilled blood, from a face ringed with a writhing, loathsome nest of worms, blue, mobile worms that crawled where hair should grow. Van Wall, 6 feet and 200 pounds of an ice-nerved pilot, gave a queer, strangled gasp, and butted, stumbled his way out to the corridor. Half the company broke for the doors. The others stumbled away from the table. MacReady stood at one end of the table watching them, his great body planted solid on his powerful legs. Norris from the opposite end glowered at the thing with smoldering hate. Outside the door, Gary was talking with half a dozen of the men at once. Blair had a tack hammer. The ice that cased the thing shuffled crisply under its steel claw as it peeled from the thing it had cased for 20,000 years.